Well, the inevitable finally happened. Gavin Williamson has gone from the government. Hopefully, as they say, maybe third time's the charm, never really to return to, well, the front benches ever again. However, this does open up a very, very interesting can of worms for Rishi Sunak because, unsurprisingly, and much to, I think, the surprise of everyone, Sunak and Williamson actually got on pretty well. And it seemed that they were very, very much close and political allies, with Sunak even appointing him in the position that he was in to be a troubleshooter, someone who could sort out the problems in that particular department. And this is why Sunak may have brought him into government, to be someone who could be his close ally. Because Sunak knows that he has had to build this coalition government, of which is built, as we've said all this time when we've described the Sunak government, it is a house of cards built on quicksand, and you do not know what could cause it to collapse. But that is how fragile the current Tory government is under Sunak. And Sunak needed someone who was going to be his ally when the going got tough. Who was going to be there to support him right until the end? And that person seemed to have been, at least for the time being, who knows if he has anyone else that he can really rely on, was Gavin Williamson. So this very departure may be one that Sunak very, very much comes to regret, because when push comes to shove, everyone else in the cabinet may not have Sunak's back. And as we said yesterday, there are a lot of troubles coming Sunak's way. A lot of troubles. And now that he has sort of no one to sort of, well, one less person maybe to have his back, well, it suddenly becomes a whole lot easier, shall we say, for Brutus to come in from behind. So, before we go jumping into this, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are my links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. There's also the YouTube thank you button down below. And of course, the Pony Club down below is as well. Remember, Wednesday is today that we release our membership video. So if you are a member of the Pony Club, you will get a membership video. Like I say, if you are on Patreon as well, you'll get those as well. So like I say, if you want to see those videos, you join up either to the Pony Club or the Patreon. And like I say, you have full access to them all. So on we go with this today then. So this comes from Sky News, from Sam Coates, who I think has got this in one. I think he is right about this. This is why we're going to looking at what Sam Coates had to say about this, because I think he's right. I think with Williamson gone, this is a massive now hole in Sunak's government that he's going to have to be, I think very carefully about who he puts in place and who else will really have his back when, as we've talked about, all the troubles that he's got coming, the budget, what's going to be in that budget? Is he going to commit to the pension triple lock still? Is there going to be sort of funding issues? Are the Green Tories going to cause a kick up at fuss? All kinds of stuff that are literally going to come. And that's not even the stuff that is maybe on the way that we don't know about yet. It's going to be an interesting ride for Sunak. And he's just jettisoned potentially one of his closest allies. So anyway, let's get into this. So the pantomime of the British politics has exited stage right, leaving for a third and presumably final time, with the crowd booing. There are no public dissenting voices to his departure. It has been deemed inevitable. But nothing about this case is as obvious as it seems. Perhaps the most intriguing opening question is why Rishi Sunak appointed Sir Gavin Williamson in the first place, and whether it's worth at least examining the argument for why the PM may in time regret accepting his resignation. And that is really one of the big questions, because it's not just, of course, about Gavin Williamson, it's also about Suella Braverman as well. And Labour have already laid this accusation at Rishi Sunak that Sunak has done, backroom deals to essentially secure his premiership. Like I say, Braverman has even worse claims against her. And as we said last time, not to downplay the stuff that Williamson has done, but Suella Braverman is being described as a national security risk, and yet she's still in position of home as the Home Minister for Secretary of State for Home Office. It's wild. It really is wild. But yeah, there's definitely some backroom dealings going on. I think that's very much plainly been the case. But anyway, back to it. So none of which is to excuse some of Sir Gavin's messengers and reported comments to colleagues, which are rightly judged harshly in the cold light of day. Ultimately, that's what has sealed his fate. And in Westminster, there was the immediate consensus that his departure was necessary. But this alone does not always mean it was the sensible course, and some of the judgments involved are more intriguing and nuanced. However distasteful the messages and testimony were, not only the reason that he went, ultimately what has transpired over the last 48 hours is that Sir Gavin has had too many enemies for Number 10 to actually cope with, and deciding now was the right time to settling scores. And that was the very interesting one, that this definitely does seem to have been a score-settling maneuver. And these allegations, bear in mind, came out when Braverman was under a lot of pressure. So there's a lot of, I think, stuff to certainly say that the right wing of the Tory party has gone, right, Braverman's under a lot of pressure. We've got to try and relieve the pressure. Who can we sacrifice? And it does seem to have been very much, we know the stuff floating around Williamson, so we'll put that out in the open. It seems certainly that way to me. But anyway, back to it. So last night, the new PM judged that the cost of losing him had become a price worth paying. But it took 2 weeks for Rishi Sunak to actually reach this conclusion. Why and what changed? For the moment of his appointment, Gavin's third act in the government irritated colleagues after a very decisive tenure as chief whip, a difficult time as defence secretary, and even a deeply troubled time as education secretary. Bluntly, he is unpopular. Unusually for a politician, even Sir Gavin cheerily acknowledges this in private, and Rishi Sunak will have had people telling him this too. But the PM appointed Sir Gavin as a troubleshooter, a person he needs more than almost any other right now. And that, under Boris Johnson, was held by Nigel Adams, who stayed with Johnson in the bunker to the very end. This signals a very strong belief that whatever his troubled public profile, the PM trusted his political instincts and skill enough to keep him close. If Sunak's decision to reappoint Suella Braverman to a big job, the Home Secretary, was to appease the important caucuses, the hard Brexiting ERGers, it is at least as significant that Sir Gavin had a floating role which he carried very little meaning as far as the public was concerned. And far fewer than a dozen MPs he counts as friends currently had not heard of any faction. The PM was never buying many friends by appointing Sir Gavin. So the moment of getting him back in the cabinet lay elsewhere. The truth is that Sir Gavin had some appeal to every Prime Minister bar Liz Truss, from David Cameron onwards. While never great in front of house, he ultimately understood the political reality of trying to coax, cajole, and yes, even coerce the fractious, frightfully Conservative Party to march behind the Prime Minister of the day. This is a smelly and unpleasant task, and Sir Gavin outwardly relished and the unsavoury aspects all too visibly. However, he also understood the PM's individual constituency needs, weak points, and their venality and vilety, and their selfish aspirations, and the personal difficulties and political pressure points. So ultimately here, Gavin Williamson was the hard man, shall we say. He was the bag man. He was the guy who would be dispatched, and that seems to be maybe that's the position that Rishi Sunak had him fulfill. That certainly does seem to be the way, that he was the the bag carrier, that, if anyone was causing troubles, round the bagman would come to, settle the score, to, quiet any discontent. But even then, Williamson was so unpopular, it just seems that, well, he had to go. And now you've lost your enforcer, or at least it seems to be the chief enforcer. Could Rishi Sunak now lose control of the party? This could be interesting. Could be very interesting the way this goes. However, it is also understood that MPs' individual constituency needs were weak point. Oh no, hang on. There we are. So Sir Gavin's talent, there we are, was to understand and reflect back at MPs the bits of their personalities they wish the wider public didn't know. Such a person was never going to be popular, and his caustic humour and talent for misjudging certain audiences meant that he made the job of hating himself even easier than it should have been. Yet, there are few MPs with a talent for political management and the encyclopedic knowledge of the kind of political and personal trivia that you might expect in SW1. It has become an exponentially harder task the longer the Tories have been in power. People with this skill set are few and far between, and the challenge of keeping the Tories together is arguably the biggest battle Sunak faces. Battle scarred by the Johnson years, and now in need of to extract a landslide-winning MP, traumatized by the Truss mistake and encircled by the global and domestic challenges, now led by a man who lost the last Tory membership vote. Mr. Sunak needed every piece of the party management advice he could get, which is why he turned to Sir Gavin. Selling spending cuts, tax rises, and to a sceptical party and trying to convince them to compromise on Brexit in Northern Ireland is the right choice, and each is an impossible task. So that is really the state now. I think Williamson was brought in to be the diplomat, but the thing is, Sunak brought in probably one of the most hated members of the internal parliamentary Tory party into his cabinet. But Williamson had that knowledge, a knowledge that few people in the Tory party really do have. And the question is now, with Williamson gone, with your hard man, your diplomat, the bagman now gone, to go in and try and sort of settle those disputes, to trying to compromise, for example, on the Brexit Northern Ireland question. Well, the ERG are going to kick off. The ERG are absolutely going to kick off. We are already seeing the fruits of, okay, let's sit down and negotiate on that question. But of course, the DUP separate issue and everything else that's going on in Northern Ireland. But at least there is negotiation, and we've been like that for years. That look, all the government really needs is to sit down and actually talk with the EU to negotiate these things out. But as I've always said, those hard right Brexiteers, those ERGers, will come down and see that any form of negotiation, any form of compromise is a betrayal of Brexit. So it wouldn't surprise me that now Williamson is gone, that you would start to see more factions start to really assert themselves in the Tory party. And very quickly, Sunak could find his entire control of the Tory party is gone. And the budget in a couple of weeks may be a very hard, well, what may have been, something that was going to be at least be a bit difficult, becomes even more harder to sell to the Tory party. And where we go from here, if it becomes, the voting for the budget becomes a confidence issue, well, oh boy. We may have yet another potential prime minister in a couple of weeks if it kicks off like that. But could it go that way? Well, given how volatile British politics has been for the past couple of years, I wouldn't put it past it. I wouldn't put it past it to go that way. But as always, like I say, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for your watch. Thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and more updates link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. And of course, other stuff that you can support the channel is down below as well, the YouTube thank you button and the Pony Club. And of course, we'll see you all next time.